The storm had been unforgiving that night. Snow pounded the roof of the small wooden cabin nestled deep in the Rocky Mountains, where David Miller, a widowed carpenter and single father, lived alone with his memories. Ever since his wife Emily had passed away 2 winters ago, the cold hadn't just been outside, it had settled deep in his heart. He spent his days working on furniture, and his nights staring into the fire, haunted by silence. Life had become mechanical, quiet, and painfully empty. But everything changed the night he heard the cries. It was past midnight, and David had just put another log on the fire when a strange sound drifted through the howling wind, faint, almost drowned in the blizzard. A cry. Then another. He stood frozen, unsure if grief was playing tricks on his ears. But there it was again, unmistakable, desperate, the cry of a child. Without a second thought, David grabbed his coat, boots, and a flashlight and rushed into the freezing darkness. He followed the sound into the woods behind his cabin. Visibility was poor, and the snow reached his knees. But then, under a pine tree blanketed in white, he saw a small bundle, 2 tiny girls, wrapped in a torn blanket, barely breathing, their faces pale as the snow around them. One had her tiny arms around the other, shivering and whimpering. David dropped to his knees, scooping them up into his arms. "I've got you," he whispered. "You're safe now." He didn't sleep that night. Wrapped in every blanket he owned, the twins lay beside the fire as David fed them warm milk and held their little hands to his chest. A local doctor, Dr. Hannah, came early in the morning and examined them. "They're malnourished. Frostbitten toes, but we got to them in time. You saved their lives, David." The girls didn't speak for days. They were barely 4, and the trauma had stolen their voices. David learned their names from a crumpled note tucked inside the blanket: Grace and Lily. There was no trace of who had abandoned them, and the police investigation led nowhere. When the state asked if he could foster them temporarily, David surprised even himself by saying, "They can stay with me as long as they need." It was the beginning of something neither he nor the girls could have imagined. The days that followed were hard. Grace refused to eat unless Lily did. Lily cried every time David left the room. They were fragile, like glass dolls, and their fear of abandonment ran deep. David, who hadn't held a child since his own daughter had passed at birth, struggled at first. He burnt meals, tripped over toys, and once accidentally washed their clothes with wood stain instead of detergent. But slowly, beautifully, something shifted. One morning, as David was fixing a broken chair in the workshop, Grace brought him a small nail. "Fix," she whispered. His heart nearly stopped. Later that night, Lily, curled up in his lap, looked up at him and said, "Daddy?" He wept. Months.